Okay, class, so in this video I want to talk to you about the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then the difference between disparate treatment and disparate impact. Okay, so the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a very significant piece of legislation that was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson, okay, back in 1964. And what it did, okay, it prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Okay, now that discrimination filtered out throughout many different aspects of society, okay, and one of them was employment. Okay, so what it did was it prevented employers from discriminating against employees based upon the items noted above, okay, their race, their color, religion, sex, or national origin. Okay, so an employer could not look at two applicants, okay, and base their decision about who they were going to hire based upon the color of their skin, okay, or their gender, or if one had one religious background and another one had another religious background, they couldn't use that as a criteria to make an employment decision, okay. In fact, interviewers, they cannot ask questions about that, okay? So they cannot even ask what your religion is, okay? What your race is, what your age is, whether or not you're pregnant, okay? Whether or not you're married or divorced or widowed. Those are things that would fall under the protections of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, okay? So those are things that an employer cannot make hiring decisions based upon. Okay, so one of the things that the Civil Rights Act prohibited or stopped was disparate treatment. Now, disparate treatment, this is when an employer intentionally discriminates against an individual belonging to a protected class, okay? So somebody of a particular race, somebody of a particular religion, okay, or somebody of a particular gender. Okay, the example here. There's an employer out there where they refuse to hire female engineers. That is blatant disparate treatment. Okay, they're making their hiring decisions based solely upon a protected class, which would be somebody's gender. Okay, people don't choose what their gender is. Okay, companies cannot use that as a criteria to make employment decisions. Okay, so now we need to address what a bona fide occupational qualification is. Okay, a BFOQ. Now this is a defense to disparate treatment, okay, meaning that the job requires what may appear discriminatory. Okay, so if there is a bona fide occupational qualification, meaning that there is some sort of reason why you would need a particular type of person for a job, okay, that could be considered as a defense to disparate treatment. Okay, the example here. Say that we design women's clothing, okay, and we're going to put on a fashion show. We may only accept female applicants to model the women's clothing, okay? It wouldn't make sense for us to have men wearing the women's clothing. So that could be considered a bona fide occupational qualification. Okay, so if a man tried to apply for that job, okay, and they tried to say it was disparate treatment, our company would say, well, you know, not really. This is a bona fide occupational qualification. Okay, it's something that is required in order to do this job, and we're not discriminating. It's just sort of the way that it is. You know, that would be our defense if we were taken to court for disparate treatment. Okay, now we also need to talk about disparate impact. Now this is when there's a seemingly neutral policy, okay, but it impacts members of a protected class. Okay, so say we have a hiring policy where we're only going to accept people over 6 feet tall. Okay, it's not discriminating based upon a protected class. Okay, height is not a protected class. Okay, but it impacts certain groups of people, right? There's not very many women that are over 6 feet tall. So that would be considered a discriminatory hiring practice. Now, we may have a defense to disparate impact, okay, through the use of a business necessity. Okay, so what this is, like I said, it's a defense to disparate impact, and what it means is the job requires what may be discriminatory. Okay, so an example, East, it's going to require, okay, East High is going to require their teachers to have a bachelor or master's degree in education to be hired. That is a business necessity. We can't have teachers that don't have that educational background teaching their students, okay? Because it's presumed that that person doesn't have the necessary skills in order to be an effective teacher. Okay, so there, the hiring practice of requiring that level of education would not be considered disparate impact, even though it is impacting, people that don't have a college degree. All right, so those are the differences between disparate treatment and disparate impact.